First off, let's set the stage. Recently, Trump held a press conference in the Oval Office where he presented new charts and economic data backed by economist Stephen Moore. They claim that the U.S. economy is thriving despite the recent stagnation shown in job reports. But here's the kicker. Much of the data they presented is unverified and has drawn skepticism from multiple experts.
Alongside Stephen Moore, remember that guy? Now he is with the Heritage Foundation. Together, they unveiled new, unpublished data that they claim shows job revisions during the Biden administration. Watch this.
I was telling the president that he did the right thing in calling for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. Mr. President, that's a gigantic error.
I don't think it's an error. I think they did it purposely.
Whether that, you may well be right, but even if it wasn't purposefully, it's incompetence.
Right.
Moore also said that this data would be released sometime in the next 6 months, which means we have absolutely no way of verifying whether this is actually true.
Now, Trump argued that the mainstream media and economic institutions lack credibility, throwing doubt on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. He even took it a step further by firing the head of this bureau right after a disappointing jobs report that only added about 73,000 jobs in July. This raises a lot of questions about transparency and accountability. Let's talk about the data itself. When it comes to economic indicators, having verified and unbiased information is crucial. Whether it's job growth, inflation rates, or wage increases, these numbers affect real lives. If Trump is relying on unpublished data, we need to ask who verified this information. Can we trust it? These are fundamental questions that demand answers, especially when data is being wielded as a political weapon. Moving forward, the implications of Trump's claims are significant. If he's successful in casting doubt on reputable economic reports, it could shift how the public perceives economic stability. But we must be vigilant. We've seen this before. Manipulating data for political gain can lead to policy decisions that disregard the needs of everyday Americans. As we navigate through these claims, it's imperative that we hold our leaders accountable. Independently verified data should guide our understanding of the economy. We cannot allow political narratives to overshadow the truth, especially when it comes to issues that affect the working class, families, and communities.
President Trump says billions of dollars are now flowing into the United States as a result of his sweeping new tariffs. The higher levies are impacting dozens of countries, with some duties reaching as high as 50%. Let's bring in financial expert Ann Berry. She is founder of Threadneedle Ventures and the host of Brew Markets. Ann, so great to have you on. It's only been 1 day since these tariffs took effect. How long could it take for Americans to start feeling the impacts of these levies?
Well, in some sectors, they're feeling the impact already, because we do know that some consumer goods categories actually put up their prices preemptively, anticipating that some level of tariff was going to sink in. Now that we've actually seen those officially kick in as of yesterday, without a clear line of sight to them being revoked, so that's imports from the EU, from India, from Japan, from South Korea, from other nations, I think by the time we're having this conversation 3 months from now, talking about the next quarter's earnings, we're in the thick of earnings season, we're going to see consumers having felt more impact, and we're going to see companies reporting what the impact on that in terms of some reduced sales for consumer-facing companies will actually have been.
Ready to pay more for your morning coffee, your kids' school clothes, or even your car? Because thanks to Trump's new tariffs, the bill is coming due, and it's coming a lot sooner than you think. First, let's be clear about what's going on. Trump's administration has just rolled out the highest average import tax since 1933, jumping from about 2.5% earlier this year to nearly 19% on average. These new tariffs cover almost 70 countries and thousands of products: clothing, electronics, furniture, alcohol, shoes, you name it. Some tariffs are as high as 55%, especially targeting goods from China if they don't strike a deal. And here's the kicker. Despite what Trump claims foreign exporters aren't paying for this, it's American companies that import these goods who pay the tariffs up front. And guess what they do with that extra cost? They pass it right down the supply chain until it lands in your shopping cart. Right now, prices are already starting to rise on some goods. Think clothing, alcohol, imported foods. Economists estimate the average household could lose $2,400 in purchasing power just from these tariffs. That's not even counting other inflation pressures. Next 1 to 2 months. This is when it gets real. As current inventory runs out, businesses will restock at higher tariff-inflated prices, and we'll see across-the-board increases in clothing, furniture, electronics, and even basic groceries. Late 2025. According to Apollo chief economist Torsten Sluk, this is when the full pain will be felt. Inflation could peak again, especially in the services sector, because higher product costs ripple into labor and overhead. There's even a risk of stagflation, slow growth combined with high prices. In other words, the holiday season could be a lot more expensive this year. If you buy a $100 pair of imported shoes, the tariff could push that price up by nearly 40%. That $15 bottle of European wine? Try $18 to $20. A family sedan? The auto industry says tariffs could add thousands to sticker prices. And this isn't just about consumers. Businesses, especially small ones, are feeling the squeeze right now. If you run a restaurant and your imported olive oil, wine, and appliances suddenly cost 20 to 30% more, you have two choices: absorb the cost and take a loss, or pass it to customers.
Because yesterday, J.D. Vance called it fake news. He said the reporter who got the scoop needed to get better sources. They kind of love that explanation from the Trump administration. Specifically in response to the reports that he, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Attorney General Pam Bondi were going to have dinner at the vice president's residence to discuss strategy on Trump's Jeffrey Epstein problem. Specifically, and quite definitively, I will say, Vance said, quote, in the Oval Office, by the way, "We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation." Now, I mean, CNN had 4 sources saying that the meeting had been moved or rescheduled. Reuters had a source saying the meeting had been canceled altogether. That is how aggressively Vance, Patel, and Bondi and all of their spokesfolks tried to deny the reports that they were going to hold a highly inappropriate and, frankly, pretty offensive meeting last night to discuss strategy between the White House and the supposedly independent Department of Justice on how to address the Epstein fallout.
And finally, let's talk about this so-called strategy dinner, or as I'd call it, the damage control summit. Vice President J.D. Vance, Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, all huddled together with Trump insiders for a private meeting. The topic? The Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Now, they claim it was about coordinating messaging, but the way they did it? Full of weasel words, vague, slippery language that says a lot without actually saying anything. No straight answers about Ghislaine Maxwell's sudden transfer to a cushy, low-security prison. No clear explanation on whether we'll ever see the so-called client list. And absolutely no survivors in the room. Let's be real. When your priority is controlling the PR instead of pursuing the truth, you're telling the public exactly where justice ranks on your list, and it's not at the top. So here's my question. If these people really cared about transparency, wouldn't they welcome daylight instead of hiding in the shadows? Because from where I'm sitting, sunlight's the best disinfectant and they're acting allergic to it. Drop your thoughts below. Now, is this damage control or a full-on cover-up? See you at the next one.